Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's PESA Presents Arn Amber. So, really, boss John Williams intro music or not? Here we go for one of the most, in many ways, misunderstood and still actually quite famous substances out there. Now, it goes by many names. There's alangite, ambar rather, ambroid, ambroite, Baltic amber, fossil resin, chrysolectrum, glissum, lingstone, succinite, resinite, and altogether they're still amber. Now, it is, to be exact, the hardened and polymerized resin of extinct trees. Technically, some people don't like that it's called a fossil, but that's what it is. It's hardened polymerized resin. Now, the oldest amber that we have is 525 million years old. In terms of what type of tree it comes from, people argue about that. It doesn't even just come from the bark, it's been able to come from sap out of the hardwood of the tree, the central middle part of the tree. The key thing is, as long as it is polymerized, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So, overall, your steps are step one, a tree releases resin either from the bark or the aforementioned inner hardwood. So there's your resin right there. And then there is step two, which is where the resin loses volatile components. Now, these components, it's a chemical term, those are things that are easily evaporated. So substances from this sap evaporates out and it does a chemical change. Now this process can take many years. The process of creating amber itself, how long it takes, is very argued. Some people insist that it can only take up to about 40,000 years old. Some people are like, that's utterly ridiculous, it's tens of millions of years old. Personally, I'm more so on the camp where it's a couple of tens of millions, but that's just me. Now, step three. This is where things get kind of complicated, chemically speaking. The resin has to undergo polymerization, where its component molecules start to chain together to larger, more complex molecules. This is the process that takes a very long time, from like, say, a few 100,000 years to several million years. Most people don't think that amber, age wise, is on the lower end of the spectrum. The vast majority of scientists do agree that it is on the higher end in terms of age. In other words, it takes several million years to produce. Now, sadly, a fair amount of amber marketed today, and I have seen this myself, is simply dried tree resin. A lot of what they sell out there is just not old enough to really be amber. It simply isn't. Now, it is often, I even saw this online looking for photos, sadly. But if you ever see a specimen labeled as copal amber or young amber, that is not actually amber. That is, well, it's all copal, which is a hardened aromatic tree resin. Some very key differences are is that it is fairly soluble in alcohol or really soluble in very hot linseed oil, which I would not recommend because it is very dangerous and smells like death. Not a good smell, trust me. And really, it's not the same thing in terms of the components. You haven't had the polymerization going on to get the internal complex molecules that true amber really does. Also, too, the majority of older amber, like say from the Mesozoic period, we do have two specimens of amber from the Mesozoic that I know of, and ones that are getting up to that age. It's very brittle and actually hard to work. Which brings us to the white elephant in the room. Don't worry, I'm perfectly cool with knowing that a lot of y'all clicked on this just to know something about dinosaurs. So, I hate to give you the spoiler alert, but it can't really happen. Now, most amber will never be found with dinosaur blood. There are the two specimens of amber from the Mesozoic, or not the type of mosquito that would actually suck blood. So far, we don't even have any blood from a Mesozoic era mosquito, first of all. Next of all, experiments isolating DNA from mosquitoes and amber, which has been done because, like it or lump it, Jurassic Park was a huge, huge moment for paleontology as a field, and it was really a threshold for the discipline itself and for not only for the interest that it generated for the field, but the incredible amount of professionals that are in it simply because of really the movie over the book. But once they've isolated the DNA, you can't really replicate these results. There's wonders of maybe contamination over time as the polymerization is still undergoing. People aren't really sure what's happening, but it seems like a lot of folks, when they try to isolate the DNA found in amber, you can't do it again. I mean, nobody's Dr. Wu, sadly, at least not yet. Now, with the Cretaceous age and older amber too being very fragile, it'd be very hard anyway to get, hard meaning difficult, it'd be very difficult, almost impossibly difficult, to get a specimen that would have any sort of what you would call a dinosaur's blood in it. It's just not something that's really on the cards for us. Now, overall, there are almost 2 dozen varieties of amber. That is, as per Mindat, which if you have never been our Mindat, go off there and go our Mindat. Now, it's been used in ornamentation and for display for thousands upon thousands of years. Best renowned deposits are along the Baltic Sea, and a lot of others are in the Dominican Republic, Myanmar, which some sources you'll see go by the old name of that, which is Burma, and also Russia is a very, very big miner of amber nowadays. Now, out of those, Dominican amber is typically 16 to 20 million years old. Baltic amber is known for its unique insects and actually lizards. I saw a lizard head in a piece of Baltic amber once, and that is roughly 40 million years old. Now, Burmese, now again, it's not called Myanmar amber, it's called Burmese or Burma amber. That is known for its vertebrate diversity, and it is about 100 million years old. Now, here is a little bit on some of the properties of amber, and to introduce this, here are some photos from our kind friend of the page, Alexander Emmert. So, thank you very much. Now, ancient Greeks called amber electron, and they did all these experiments on it because, oddly enough, it is a very poor conductor, but it's extremely prone to static electricity. Now, because of that phenomenon, all these experiments that they did on that, amber is actually the origin of the word for electricity. That's how we came up with the word, because of the Greeks experimenting on it and the Greeks calling it electron. So, there you go. Now, it burns at about 200 to 380 degrees C. It doesn't really melt too much. It has a conchoidal fracture when it does fracture. Has about a hardness of, say, 2 to 3, a specific gravity of 1.04 to 1.10. So right there is a bit on this wonderful substance, amber. Hope that you enjoyed it, and this month just have some fun, go out and find yourself some rocks. Thank you now, folks. Bye.